So hello and welcome. This is a quick video and it is a very important video. I have entitled the video how to take an exam. Now why is this important? This is important because there are certain habits which I would like you to practice well in advance of any examination that you are taking. So let's look at some of the things that you need to practice on well before the examination so that they can become part of you, and it's like you will have fewer things to worry about when it comes to taking your final examinations. And I have listed them, and the number one, very important, is legibility of your handwriting. When you're taking any exam, you're writing with your own hand. Have you ever thought about the other person on the other side, how they read your handwriting? Probably not, because you may be so much engrossed in passing the point or answering the question, and you're not thinking about the other person who is going to read your work. It's a human being, and they need to be able to read what you write down. For example, when you look at what I've written down here, I've written it down with my hand. And as far as I'm concerned, I think anyone can be able to read that. Everything on this page, I've written it with my hand. And whether it is capital letters or small letters, everything you can see is legible. So legibility of your handwriting. How do you make sure that what you write down is legible? How do you ensure that? First of all, the moment you are given the question paper, try to relax so that you are not in that, that excited state. But way before that, you can practice this when you are revising. Learn to write slowly. At first, you will have to write slowly. And when I write slowly, I find that when I'm almost coming to the end of what I'm writing down, I can speed up without my handwriting getting spoiled. You can see that. So how long has it taken me to write this? Of course, this one is P, this one is F over area. So I'm just giving this as an example. So in your practice writing correctly so that your handwriting improves. It's major, because if the marker does not read your work clearly, if it's not clear, you can definitely be sure that you're going to lose marks, because they are not going to assume that they know what you meant if what you're writing with your hand is not clear. So practice writing properly. Do not join your letters. You can see that, okay, where I've joined my letters, you may not be sure of what I wanted to write when I join letters. So don't join letters. Let the letters be separate as much as possible. Number two, answer the question. Start practicing answering the question. Many times you may write down a lot, and it's only later on that you go to your teacher wanting to know why did you lose marks in this particular area. And then the teacher tells you, I'm sorry, I never saw this. Because what you've said here is correct. But you wasted a lot of time initially trying to get to the answer. And one of the ways in which students waste time in trying to get to the answer is step number 3, where they don't go straight to the concept, straight to what they have been asked to do. Do not repeat the question. For example, if the question is asking you to state Newton's second law of motion, for example, you should just go straight to writing The rate of change of momentum is directly proportional. You continue like that until you finish it. Don't start your answer like this. Newton's second law of motion states that, you see, that one is just a waste. You've repeated the question. The question was, state Newton's second law, and then you start your sentence. You start by writing Newton's second law states that, and then you start writing. No, you're just wasting the time of the person who is marking your work, and they are likely to fly ahead to see where you have started mentioning the point. So go straight to the point. There is another point in that number. Do not give more than is asked for. For example, if the examiner wants you to state properties of images formed by a plane mirror, there could be 5 properties, but maybe the examiner just wants 2 properties. If you state 3 properties and the examiner wanted 2 properties, all of them must be correct for you to earn the 2 marks. If one of them is wrong and you have stated 3 of them, you end up, although 2 of them are correct, you end up getting just 1 mark, because it is interpreted differently. When you give more than you have been asked for, the examiner assumes that you are not sure about the first 2, so you are stating an extra one so that it can compensate for what you fail. They are well aware of this. So if you've been asked to state 2 factors, just state 2 factors. Don't be generous. Don't state more than you have been asked to state, unless you are sure that all of them are correct. I hope you're seeing that particular point. Now let's get to calculations. The first thing is the misuse of the equal sign. And I want to emphasize that and start practicing on this much earlier. Okay? Maybe, for example, this is the equation that you are supposed to use, and the mass that is in contact with the surface, let's assume this is a cuboid, and it is in contact with the surface in such a way that you've been given this one as 0.1 meters, this other length here as 0.2 meters, in which case, maybe let's assume the mass is 2 kilograms. Now, you know that the force that this mass exerts on this horizontal surface is equal to the weight of the cuboid. So that is the force that you need to use here. First of all, I'm going to show you a situation whereby the student has clearly misused the equal sign. So the student realizes that I need to get the weight over here, and then the student writes that one is going to be equal to 22 times 10. This is 20, and then 20 newtons, and then divide that by the area. The area is 0.1 times 0.2, and then the student gets 0.02 meters squared. And then now the student writes 20 newtons divided by 0.02 meters squared. So let's see where the student has clearly misused the equal sign. It starts here. Do you know that an equal sign means the left-hand side is equal to the right-hand side? On the right-hand side, I only have the force. But on the left, I wanted the force and the area. You've left out the area. So here, the examiner is likely to get confused as to what you're writing here. Okay? Here you failed to write to put the area. You can even put the symbol to stand for it. And then when you come here, you find that whatever you are representing, whatever you're working out here is in your mind. You're working out the area. But what you write down, by virtue of this equal sign appearing, it means it appears as if this is equal to this, which clearly it is not. Although the final substitution here is correct, you might end up losing some marks here. So what is it that you must do in a question like this? This is what you will do. If you have started by writing the equation, force pressure is equals to force over area, and you realize that you need to calculate the force first, why don't you just put a comma there, and you're going to say the force is now equal to the weight of the object, which is equal to mass times gravitational field strength, which is equals to 2 times 10, which is equals to 20 newtons. And then you go ahead and say the area is equal to 0.1 times 0.2, which is 0.02 meters squared. Of course, this one is newtons. Sorry for that. Then when you come here, don't continue here and say now 20 newtons divided by 0.02 meters squared. This is something that I always get, and I ask the students, this equal sign, if it falls directly below this, then it means what you're working out is still this. If that equal sign falls directly below this value, then it means whatever is on the left is what you're working out. So you can see here there is a mistake. There is a mistake. In order for this equal sign to make some sense, then it is what you're working out is force divided by area. That is what you're working out. And it translates into the original pressure that you are working out. So try to not to feel that you're wasting time when you rewrite an equation. In fact, this is what I would suggest. Rewrite that particular formula. It doesn't take you a lot of time just to rewrite this over here before you go on with your substitution. And if you want to break that equal sign so that you can calculate something else that was required in this original substitution, just use a comma and go on. That one is very important. So let's go over to the rest of the points. I have talked about misuse of the equal sign. The other one is use of the space that is provided. Use it wisely. You find that maybe you've been provided with 3 lines, 3 distinct lines where you have to answer the question. If you can see that according to you it requires a little bit of more calculation, just to draw a line like that and then draw another one like this, so that you can do your calculation here first, going downwards like that. Then once you're through with this, you come here, you continue like that, and then finally you continue like that and give your final answer here. That is proper use of the space that is provided. Don't write across because if you write across, you will end up filling up that space completely and you have got nowhere else to go other than start squeezing your writings on the margins and so forth. So I hope that one solves that problem of space that is provided. The other one is write word equations. See here, I want to come here and emphasize that when you are writing this equation here for pressure, for example, is force over area, don't just go to P is equals to F over A, because these symbols elsewhere in the calculations or in the topics that we study, they stand for different physical quantities. Don't assume the examiner knows what you're saying. Rewrite it like this as a word equation. Then immediately below that, you write it in symbols. That way, the examiner is very happy because you are leaving no doubt as to the fact that you know your physics. And whatever you are talking about, the physical quantity you're talking about there is the correct one. So always write equations as word equations first, and then adapt the symbols, then stick to the symbols throughout in that particular question. So that is word equation. How about the units of the final answer? This one is so important. For example, this one is 2000 divided by 2. I think this one is 1000 newtons per meters squared. Any physical quantity that is calculated finally and does not have units, usually you end up losing 1 full mark for that. Never do that unless it is a ratio. Always accompany it with units. How about confirming your answer using the calculator? When you're doing the exam, you might multiply two numbers. Like, for example, you can multiply 3 times 2. Instead of getting 6, you write 5. Some of these things actually happen. So always confirm, especially when you are rechecking your work, when you've got some little time remaining there at the end, or maybe you're pausing for a certain question that it was slightly difficult, and you're going back. Always reconfirm you're working using the calculator very fast. Don't assume that whatever you worked out mentally was the correct one, because it may be wrong. Just using the example that I've given you, sometimes the mind works in a very strange situation during the exam, but the calculator can never go wrong. So always use the calculator, especially when you're confirming your answer. The other one is about the number of significant figures that you must quote your answer to. Here is the rule. For example, how many number of significant figures am I going to quote my answer to? I look at the values that I've used in my calculation. 20, I can assume that 20 is to 2 significant figures. Of course, the area is to 1 significant figure. This is the rule. When you are calculating 2 physical quantities with different number of significant figures, you always quote your answer to the same number of significant figures as the least number of significant figures that was used in the question. In this case, I will quote my answer to 1 significant figure, and I'll say this one is 1 by 10 raised to power 3 newtons per meters squared. But there is no harm in quoting it to 1.0 by 10 raised to power 3 newtons per meters squared, like this, or even leaving the values like this. It really doesn't matter a lot in physics, in any other calculation other than the practicals. I'll be covering the complete guide as to how you're supposed to take your practical examinations in a separate video. Here I'm talking about any other calculations that you undertake within that particular paper. Now, when you look at the pieces of instructions that we are given on the first page, we are told we can use mathematical tables or slide rules or a non-programmable calculator. Now, when you use mathematical tables, the mathematical tables we use, we quote our answers to 4 significant figures. That is why they are called the four-figure mathematical tables, because the answers must be quoted to 4 significant figures. And that is why you find that most teachers tell you to always quote your answer to 4 significant figures. But in the absence of mathematical tables and slide rules, you are going to use the calculator. That's why I gave you the first rule. If you're calculating numbers, let's just give another example. Maybe you're calculating the energy of a photon, which is hf, and you know that the value of h is given to 3 significant figures as 6.63 by 10 raised to minus 34 joule seconds. maybe the frequency of that wave is given as, that radiation is given by as 1 by 10 raised to power 15 Hertz. You can see that the values you are using here, one of them, which is 6.63, is quoted to 3 significant figures. The other one is quoted to 1 significant figure. This one here, 1 by 10 raised to power 15. If it was 1.0, they have given you the frequency to 2 significant figures. If it is 1.00, that is 3 significant figures. But if it is just 1 by 10 raised to power 15, it is 1 significant figure. So you can see the values which are given in the question have got different number of significant figures. This is 3 and this is 1. So the answer will be quoted to 1 significant figure, or you can add 1 more. That is the rule. You look for the physical quantity with the least number of significant figures. You either quote your answer to that one significant figure or add 1 more. In this case, my answer, if I add 1 more, will be 6.6 by 10 raised to power 15 minus 34 joules, when I use that kind of working out. I'm going to show you how you use the calculator to work out these values very, very fast, and you won't have a problem with that. So I hope that one has helped you. Let's go back. The other one is to observe the time. What kind of advice can I give you when it comes to observing time? Normally, a lot of time is wasted in this particular section where a student is stuck and doesn't know what to do. So literally, the student is not writing down anything. That is where a lot of time is wasted. None of the time is wasted when you are trying to write the formula as a word equation, substituting, going on slowly all the way to the answer. If you do that, there will be more than enough time, in fact, to review your work. So usually don't worry about the time that is provided, so long as you consistently work at a particular speed which is comfortable to you. If a paper is 2 hours, 30 minutes, or even 2 hours, just make sure that you apportion the time the way you have been practicing in school. And that is the reason why I'm giving you this point, so that you can practice with them much, much earlier in school before the day of the actual examination. Let's look at the other piece of advice that I would want you to take care of before you take an exam. And this one is checking your stationery. Number 1, there are pens, pencils, erasers, 30 centimeter transparent ruler. Ensure that the ruler you use is 30 centimeters and that it is transparent. Transparent, I'll be talking about why it must be transparent when it comes to the practical video. So don't miss that particular video. It will be the next one from here, where I'll be advising you on how to go about the major steps in tackling a practical paper. Pencil, it must be clear enough. It must be produced that intense black color on paper. Don't allow it to be so faint, because if it is so faint it can't be seen, then the examiner will have a hard time looking at your work. How about the pen that you use? Sometimes when you use a new pen that you have not used to write anything with it, sometimes it comes and you find that before the ink can start flowing out normally, it's a bit sticky. It's a bit sticky, and the writing which you produce on the paper is faint. So just use the pen that you've been writing with. But when you look at the ink, it's comfortable. It's full of ink. Eraser, I can't overemphasize this stationery. Now, let's look at the calculator. There is one aspect of the calculator which I'd like you to be careful about, and that is the mode of the calculator. So let me briefly take you through the mode of the calculator so that you will understand what I'm referring to. Now, the next thing that I'd like you to be careful when it comes to using the calculator is the mode of your calculator. Here I have two calculators. In one of them, this one is set to degree mode. The mode is this D that you find here, degree mode, while this one is set to radian mode. So I'm reading the sign of angle theta. You can even try this one with your own calculator. When the mode is radian and you read the sign of the angle that you know very well, like for example sine 30, you expect it to be 0.5. So when it is set in the degree mode, it gives you the correct value. But when you don't check the mode carefully, it gives the wrong value. So ensure that the mode is correct. So I'm going to change the mode of this calculator. So I press the mode over there and I press it once again, and I can see radian and I can see degrees. So I'm going to click one there, and then I click answer or enter, or rather let me go and just read the sign of that angle, which is 30 degrees. I expect 0.5, so it gives me now the correct value. Why should you check the mode of your calculator before you do the examination? It is important because in the heat of the exam, you are likely to pick the calculator and just punch values, and what values that appear on the calculator, that is what you're going to write on your script. So the first thing is to check the mode. The other one is to check the battery of the calculator. This one is using a solar panel there, but this one has got batteries. So ensure that if you're using one with a battery, just check that the battery that you're using is okay and that the calculator is functioning very well. In most of the cases, that may not be necessary to check the calculator because those batteries usually last for a very long time, but it's something that is important that you should ensure. So the other one is about calculations like the one that I've given you on this page. You see we are calculating, let me see, where did I put it? I think there was one where I was working out, okay, values like this. I want to get the answer, so let me now use just one calculator so that you can be able to see how you get the answer over here. So what do I have? I have 6.63 times 10 raised to minus 34. This is the trick that I usually teach my students to use. So it is 6.63 exponential, that means by 10 raised to minus, you see that minus over there in brackets, it's the one I use, and then I say 34, and then that one is being multiplied by 1 exponential 15. This time the power is positive, so exponential 15, and I just press the equal sign, and you can see it gives me 6.63 by 10 raised to power minus 19, which is the correct answer. So when it comes to writing values with in power form by 10 raised to a certain power, just write exponential, and then when the power is positive, you just type that number. When the power is negative, then you use this negative sign, which is over here. And those are the few things that I'd like you to take care of when you are taking an exam. Take time and practice on these things, and you will see how easy your revision is going to be. Otherwise, until next time when I'll be talking about the practical paper, continue working hard.